And so we will call this meeting of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission on August 18th to order at 7:33. Looks like, welcome everybody. Paul, I think he wrote a note to everybody, he's away on business. Valerie, I hope will be here with a comment on one item in particular. We do not look like we have any public comment tonight. I did not get any emails, so we'll jump forward to the second item of the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. And unless somebody has a correction, I will move to approve both together. Is anybody going to have comments?
They look good to me.
Can correct my name again.
Again? We need to correct your name? I think we can probably make
Have
that
a general correction on every minute.
Is it in both of them?
No. The little.
On the little one, so I'm the guilty party.
You're the guilty party.
Okay. Admitted, I did it. So I gotta go correct my master. So I guess I will make a motion to approve the minutes of July 21st and August 6th, with August 6th being a member with the correct spelling of our Hagen Smith's name.
Was it August 6th or 8th?
It
Says the 8th.
Probably my glasses. August 6th I have written down here on the agenda.
This says 8th.
Was it August 8th? Let's get that
Which-
correct.
But does anybody
That's-
remember which it
So we
was?
walked
That's
on Saturday, the 6th, correct?
So it was the 6th?
So it was the 6th.
But you
so
wrote it on the 8th on them, so that needs to be corrected on the meeting.
That needs to be corrected, yes.
The date needs to be corrected. So with those two corrections, I need a second.
Sure. Second?
Second by Diana.
Aye.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
And it looks like it passes. Thank you. Next up, Barbara, is an update on the tree ordinance
Oh my goodness.
effort.
Let me get to it, please. Okay, Paul and I had a very good meeting with a woman named Danielle from Westport. They are working on their tree ordinance. They are working on an ordinance, not regulations. She says in Westport, apparently this is complicated because they have an RTM, which I had never even heard of, but it's a residential town meeting, et cetera, and it gets more and more complicated. They have lots from 1/8 of an acre to 2+ acres, depending upon where they are. And their issues really, the thing that really brought this up for them was the problem of drainage and flooding, which of course we don't have. But that is something that that made them start looking at this. They have been working on it for 8 or 9 months now. They are finding a lot of kickback by people. The first selectman is against it. A lot of people are against it because they say you can't tell me what to do on my land. They have had no challenges or questions by insurance companies, which I thought was interesting. But they're approaching it to save any mature and or native trees in the setbacks, which are on all 4 sides of the properties, each of the properties. The Public Works is against it because they say the emergency condition will take too long. These are just things that you know, if something comes up in emergency, apparently they feel that it'll take too long to get the permission to take the tree down, kind of thing.
Oh.
And these are things that I just think that we need to look at when we're doing it to approach it. She said it is very challenging, etc. Ridgefield has an ordinance, which she said does not have much teeth. But Nyack has an ordinance which I have here, and what I've read of it seems quite interesting and something that I think we need to look at. Also, there is a man whose name I cannot remember, and it doesn't make any difference right now, who started working with them on this whole project in Westport, and he's now moved to Greenwich, and I think they're starting to work on the same thing.
So there's a little bit of a movement.
And the question is, I guess basically, can TPZ regulate aesthetics of the land? You know, if we don't have the flood and wetlands to fall back on as environmental concerns, and that's something I guess we have to talk to
TPZ.
Christine or TPZ about
Yeah.
their thoughts on that, etc. I did bring a copy of the Nyack or Upper Nyack actual ordinance that they have, and apparently for them it is working quite well, and it is based on aesthetics. They simply say our town is full of trees, and that's the way it should stay.
We like to have it.
Kim, do you think you could send that out to all of us, or somebody could send it out
Oh,
to all
yeah,
of us?
I have it on,
Yeah.
it came from her through the internet. I could just
Electronically?
pass it
You
on.
could
Yeah.
send
It's
it on
just a
to
site,
each one of us?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That'd be great.
Sure.
It'd be good background.
Sure.
I do have a question about Westport. What's the scope they're trying to do? Are they trying to do all property in town, or are they just trying to do property under development?
I think, and I don't quote me, but I think Westport is trying to do property under development,
Okay.
not all property.
And
And
you-
Nyack, I think, pretty much is, they simply say you can't cut down a tree on your property without going through the process of, and they're talking about 12-inch diameter. They're not talking about huge trees. They're talking about, they consider that a mature tree.
well,
It's a fairly
It's a good
size, but,
good-sized tree.
Who's the regulatory body in their town that approves this?
I'd have to look it up.
That's the
Yeah.
NAC for
So they-
NIAC, yeah.
Oh. But, like, as far as how the town government works in Westport?
No. Like, I wanted to know, so if, say, someone in Nyack says, I want to cut down a tree, do they have to get permission? And then who do they go to? And like, is there paperwork that they fill out?
What's the
Well, I can
process?
just say this straight out. It says upon the express finding by the village forester that the proposed tree removal will not result in or cause increase or aggravate any or all of the following conditions: impaired growth or development. So he probably has, or he or she probably has a lot to do with it. Tree removal permit may be issued by the planning board. I mean, these are things that I'm just picking out here.
And then I guess my only other question would be, so I know that this kind of was triggered by the property development on Northrop.
No,
Mhm.
yeah.
Is there a remedy included in the NIAC for homeowners to cut down trees but then replace them in different parts of their lawn? Or is it just they can't remove any trees at all?
I believe there's a remedy, or you mean replanting?
Right, like say, you have a over 12-inch tree, but it's too close to your home.
Yeah.
For your comfort level, are you allowed to remove it, but then are you required to plant a tree in a different part of your
Yeah.
yard?
Those things are addressed in here. I'm sorry
Okay.
to say I can't.
It's okay, if Tim can
pick it
send
out
that out
immediately.
around to everybody,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Um,
Thank you.
You could kind of, you know, a good question would be like, a lot of folks are considering, you know, getting renewable energy if they wanted to take down a tree so that they could have solar on their roof and then replant something in a different area.
Mhm, mhm.
Maybe more than
Oh, yeah,
one or
there are
something.
many reasons for doing it, yeah.
Sure.
And it does say here that the code enforcement official permit is the permit is gotten from that person.
The
In
code
Westport-
enforcement,
That's what they're calling it, the code enforcement official.
In Westport, what is the entity that's working on this? Is it, I don't know their town
The-
government structure, but.
I think she is from planning, planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning is working on it?
Mhm.
So, you know, I would make two comments. As the subcommittee goes forward, I think there is a decision, as you sift through all the information you gather and think about and talk about it, of you know, what's the scope that we would like to recommend that this apply to. You know, there is a big leap between something that's being developed, a subdivision, and what happened up on Northrop, and talking about every homeowner in the town
Mhm.
and what they can do to their property. Now, that might be something that might be reasonable to get to over time, and that could be, you know, so as you come back with your out, you know, and, you know, I'll say this because it's been a long time since we've talked about it. I think the recommendation that David Lober gave us was, you know, we should come up with I'll call it an outline, I'm not sure that is his word, an outline of what this should be. And let the details be worked out by the Board of Selectmen, their ordinance committee, and planning and zoning probably. And this is, you know, our work, I think, is to say, you know, we've looked and this would be our recommendation to you to preserve these town resources.
Right.
Let them work the exact details, so.
Tim, I'm curious why they would be better equipped to do that when they have so many other things they're doing, and this is one of the major projects that we're thinking of.
It was, and maybe I should let David speak for himself, and I will interrupt myself and say that I forgot to make sure everybody knew that David Lober's on viewing the meeting and on the phone, as he was not able to come in today, much like Kate last meeting. So, I don't know if David, have you heard that and you want to reiterate your suggestion of letting that go to the first selectman, Mike? Do we have David? My recollection is he said that it's a process thing.
David, we
He
had a
said
question
we-
about the tree ordinance and the Board of Selectmen, if you're able to hop back over to the Zoom screen.
And it,
He said, my memory is, what he said is that we, as a Conservation Commission, shouldn't spend a lot of our time and resources coming up with exact wording of an ordinance.
an ordinance, exactly.
When there
There
is
is
an
a
ordinance committee
committee
whose job
that
it
does
is to
that.
do that.
so it looks like it's called the Tree Preservation Regulations.
Oh, I've got Dave.
And
Can I
it's,
put him?
and she's the chair of the
Oh, hold on one-
P&Z for Westport.
No?
So I have David. What was our question specifically?
If he could recall his thought process.
Committee does that.
I would mute the other one for a second, otherwise you're gonna get confused.
She's the chair of the. Oh, hold on.
All right.
So I have David. What was our question specifically?
It's worked a lot smoother with you, Kate. He needs to.
The other one for a second, otherwise you're gonna get.
Well, I don't want to spend a lot of time.
Tim,
Kind
there's
of.
a delay, so
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, but he should have the phone there too. Yeah, just mute him, Kate. But Sharon, that was the reason. He thought we would just waste our time trying to formulate a very specific ordinance where the process-wise, since they write the ordinances, give them the recommendation and let that ordinance committee take it from there, because they're gonna change it anyway.
Right.
And, you know, it's a better, more effective use of our time.
And a bigger question in my mind is, do we, and maybe the ordinance committee could answer this, do we go towards trying to do regulations under planning and zoning, or do we try looking for a complete ordinance, excuse me?
I think we leave that to the Board of Selectmen and how they think between the ordinance committee and TBZ, how it should be implemented. I don't think we have enough knowledge to make that call. That would be my opinion.
So I guess that would
Yeah.
be something David could help us, guide us
Yeah.
on.
As a liaison, I mean, and if this doesn't work, we'll
Yeah.
get,
Ask
you know,
them to
make a
answer
better
that.
arrangement for next time and get him in to talk about that.
I think
Yeah.
maybe investigating how other towns in Connecticut do it, and also how towns in other states might do it, because I can imagine that we might be more invested in this tree ordinance than the ordinance committee or the Board of Selectmen, because they have so many other things to
Well-
do. So we might carefully outline it and then have them take over and,
Yeah.
And
Define it.
that's
And
exactly it.
exactly what
Okay.
the suggestion was, that the outline should say, this is what should be in it, this is, you know, what it should address, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And to be specific, but not try to write
Are you ready to talk?
in legal terms the wording,
That's
just
fine.
real outline of all the important bullets they should consider.
Alright, Dave's gonna talk. As soon as there's a break, talk.
I think first of all, you mentioned an aesthetic component piece to this. And there already is precedent, I think, for aesthetic components. You have light ordinance, you have setback ordinance, you have height ordinances, you have a pattern book. You know, these are all requirements for building in town. So I think if you make a presentation about what the basic idea of what you want to do, and present it to the ordinance committee, get it formulated something, and, you know, run it by the town attorney, and probably have another meeting. You know, fine through it, but,
We can't.
Next time you talk, can we have you mute the YouTube channel?
Turn your sound down.
Just on the YouTube channel, not on the Zoom. Okay, he's all set.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, David.
thanks, Dave. Okay. Anything else,
Thank you,
Barbara?
Barbara. That was
Capture what
helpful.
he just said? Do
No,
we wanna try to
except
read
that,
it?
That's a good question.
well, one other thing, we would like everybody's input as to what they would like to see included in this, and then we can talk further with other places about whether these things have come up and how they fly, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think something that I think triggered this is the act of clear cutting is even, I mean,
Clear cutting for subdivision is what triggered the whole.
yeah, so that's, I think, a part that could be addressed, and it would be interesting.
Yes, they,
Thank you. Just two questions I'm going to ask. One, what is our time frame on this? Because if we're looking to turn something around within a couple of months, you know, that's one strategy that I think sort of puts the onus on the committee to come up with. If we have a bit more time, you know, if we're looking to turn something around, let's say 6 to 9 months, you know, there's an opportunity that we could bring in, you know, students from the School of Forestry or from another local university who could do some research on other ordinances in other towns, in other states, and put together sort of what best practices are, what is like I don't know the path of least resistance, what seems to have worked, you know, and sort of scale out what some of our options are. So those are my two biggest questions. You know, is it something that we want to take on and craft ourselves, or do we want to, you know, really look at what else is out there, and pick, you know, have a good sampling to pick and choose what we want to be included in.
Good question.
I don't think any of us have ever set a time limit. This
No.
came up because of my seeing my road destroyed by clear cutting, and having it done right behind me also, and seeing it in other places in town, and it just seems like it
Yeah.
shouldn't happen.
It,
And we've just started to sort of check other towns in the state, but I don't think the only timeline we have is the faster we do it, the fewer more times it's gonna happen.
yes, I think that's a consideration, but it is an interesting thought, doing a deep dive with, you know, you mentioned Yale School of Forestry, and I guess I would just turn around and ask you, do you think it's worth that time, you know, to do that? I can understand why you would do it. I mean, you probably get some perspectives, additional perspectives. We hope to get perspectives by sampling what other towns have done, and we've gone out of state even to Nyack, which is good. Because it should be the same problem, it doesn't matter. And that reminds me of the town I found that was, I thought was in Connecticut, and we never found out what state it was in, but they had a very nice, I thought, ordinance with remedies and so forth. So, I mean, both are good. My sense, you know, Barbara's got a point, you know, my sense is, you know, I'd like to see us be done with this by November-ish, so it's done by the end of the year. And the other thing you have to keep in mind, of course, is I guess we have a little longer next year, you know, so maybe my point is off. The Board of Selectmen terms will begin up in '23, right? And is it May, or I think in this now?
No, it's now
Now we
November.
moved to November.
It's November now.
November. So there's, you know, just leave enough time for the ordinance committee to take action before they get upturned by the new
And just,
terms. So, you know, my sense is, my druthers would be the sooner the better. That's my sense of it. But and Barbara, to the point about input, I think that's good. I think we can all go home and write down some things we might consider in it. I mean, you might want to think about priming that by sending out the 2 or 3 examples that you have, because you know, we found a couple initially before we formed the subcommittee, and what else you found, and prime it and say, what do you think should be in here? You know, you can have people chime in, or you want to try to construct it that way. So that's fair. But you know, once we've, you know, I was telling someone this today too. Listening, was I reading this or listening? I don't remember honestly, but they talked about the problem of choice, and they used 2 examples: when you're finding the right house when you're house hunting, and finding a life partner. I'll use the house example. That as you go to start to look at houses, how do you know when you found the right one? And how many do you look at? And I guess the mathematicians worked on it, and they came up with a rule of 37%, which I didn't ever finally understand the 37%, but basically it came down to, you got to go out and do your sampling and figure out what you don't like and what you like, and then you plan to do that without your checkbook, and you look at 3 to 4 houses, and after that, if you find one that you like better than all the rest of them, that's the one you should get. Because after, it's just, in a way, it's diminishing returns. You're not not more likely to find something better. And here I say maybe this is the same. Once we've sampled, you know, a number of places, and you got that much information, just, you know, put it together with the best ideas that we have at this time. And, you know, having something that prevents, you know, let's not let the perfect be stand in the way of the good. So let's, when we get it done, we prevent the next Northrop Road.
Thinking of, I guess something in the middle of those two ideas, either, you know, like a quick turnaround, long turnaround, something, a resource we might be able to use. There is a listserv of town planners and P&Z folk in the state where
Yeah.
you can just post a question and towns can self-report back their information. So maybe that's
Yeah.
another way to
Sounds
sort of
right.
get the broadcast out there and see what comes back.
Interesting.
We would need a town official though to post on that, right?
Yeah, whoever is listed for, you know,
TPZ?
planning and zoning, yeah.
Okay.
And it can be commissioners too, who can get access to that list, or you just
Hmm.
write it and request it.
Well, it's a question that Chris Sullivan should probably help us with. And she may be able to do that before us, we would ask. Okay. So, do you want me to take that as an action, or do you want to try to do that out of the subcommittee? I guess I'd rather.
I
Someone
think
do it out of the
the three of us can
subcommittee.
talk about it and see what we can come up with.
Okay.
I guess
And,
I have a clarifying question. Before this gets too much further along, is what you're envisioning this to do, would that have prevented houses from even being built on that land?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I guess I'm just not clear on like how much tree clearing are you envisioning being allowed for someone to be able to build a piece of something on a property?
I personally can't answer that, but what I'm trying to stop, what I don't want is what we term clear cutting. They take the whole 1.5 acres and cut every single tree on the property down, except for maybe 3.
I understand that that's it's visually jarring. In full disclosure, one of those homes is actually my cousin's. I think that we want to be mindful of leaving room for people to be able to actually plant. Like I know that my cousin and his wife will put plantings onto the property now that the house is built. But with the solar farm, I mean, they cut down, what, close to 10 acres worth of trees? Like, would this ordinance prevent something like that has other environmental benefits?
Or are there special
They're
case
special,
situations?
yes, there's, it has to go through a process, and if there are, at least in these particular things, I don't think you can, in anything, can you just say no.
yeah.
There are conditions, exceptions, et cetera, et cetera.
I think the intent is wonderful. I just want to make sure that we're very clear on what we're asking for. Because it would kind of blanketly impact everyone who owns land in town if they're not allowed to cut down anything over 12 inches without some kind of approval from some town person.
Well, but I would imagine, so anytime they're developing land and they're either considering clear cutting or removing some, they have to submit what currently exists and what their plans are to remove and submit that before they get approval right to build anything. So I would imagine it's at that point in time where whoever the review committee is, has a lens to look through to say, okay, how many of these are, fit the 12-inch diameter, what we're looking for,
Threshold,
and
yeah.
how many do you want to keep? Okay, well, some of these, we want to try to keep, and some of them obviously for the point of development, need to go, but need to be replaced with something equivalent or whatever over the next 3 years, right?
In the, I'll just add to what you said, that in the Merritt Avenue plans that we looked at fairly carefully, one of the plans in there was a planting plan.
Mhm.
And I do not know if that's a requirement, or that was just out of the goodness of their hearts, they want, because they knew the area.
It's a requirement.
But it's probably a requirement, thank you for, and this might just be an extension, a tightening up or adding to that requirement. I'd like to get to the end of this discussion, there's lots of, this was still gather information stage, but I think, Kate, maybe some of your questions will be answered if some of the samples get sent out, because I think you'll see there some of the remedies and how the towns have structured, trying to recognize valid reasons, but also trying to balance it with, and I just remember the one plan that said for every, one of these, then you need to plant 2 of these,
Yeah.
that type of thing. And so maybe we'll get, a better sense of how they take into account some of the valid reasons why trees come down. So it does have to be careful, so. Any final?
My only final thing is,
Yeah.
I'd like to, I know it's more work, but to maybe look at Massachusetts or New Jersey or sort of other similar states than Connecticut that have lots of municipalities that might add to our wealth of knowledge so that we could have more resources to look at to make a
Yeah,
determination.
so my suggestion in reaching out to the school of forestry is that, they have a bunch of students who could possibly do some work like that in a very quick period of time, where they can collect a lot of that data for us, where between, Barbara and Paul and myself, we not have all those hours.
Yeah.
So, if it's okay with the committee, maybe I can just look
At
into
least
that
make
and
a
see.
contact and just say, do you
Yes.
have anything already done, a knowledge of?
Right.
Know some towns, because it's hard finding the towns, right?
Yeah,
Tried
if
at
the
very,
goal is
very beginning.
November,
Yeah, well, I
development isn't gonna happen over the in theory.
I threw that out, I'm not.
Yeah. Isn't gonna happen over the winter
We'll
time,
decide if
a
it's
little bit of a-
worth more time, it's worth more time,
Right.
but
Yeah,
I
okay,
don't wanna.
that sounds good.
I don't want to drag this out either, because, we're not going to do the final. And I think these questions will need to be asked when the ordinance gets together with perhaps planning and zoning and figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just want to prime the pump, if you will, and give them some of the areas that should be considered and food for thought, and then try to, hopefully they go forward. And maybe, someone here continues to represent us in that effort. Okay, good. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Diana. We're going to get up and stretch for a minute for the next item, which is an update on 356 Rune. I have the site plan for that, and so I'll invite everybody to come up and we'll do the update from over there. Diana, if you would, just turn your mic and point it that way, that way we make it up the discussion.
Oh, I see where we're going.
And the camera, I think that's going to focus on is over here, so we may want to stand this way.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can we whisper to Dave that we're adjourning, or is he coming with us?
You can see. I just have to plug it in. I might be in the way,
No, I don't think you're in the way. I think you're good right now. We'll just look for Kate and we'll just- I don't think my ability to read plans is any better than anyone else's, so, but, so I think you start, let me come back over. This, Kate, Kate, you may 366 River Road. This is just gone to inland wetlands, at the very beginning, and the developer has stated that, there's no really decisions to be made by wetlands, but because there are wetlands on the property, they want to be property in wetlands. I think the facts you might want to look at first up here is they talk about the subdivision, which there are 3 lots proposed, and there's 10.6, 5, and 6.1, so it's 16, 21, 22 acres. Out of that, the open space proposed is 8.2 acres. So that's a fair percentage of the whole. I guess the percentage here. Percentage of area given for open space, 27.3%. Okay, so you can see the open space on the map. This is Rune Road. The property, there are a lot of lines, and let me start over here. This is open space along the edge. So you have a road access here, and there's another road access over here to a small piece of the property. And I'll get back to that. So this is all open space, runs along the border, and it runs along the back, and this is wetlands. So it runs across these wetlands also. So it's a combination. Yes, there is an edge of wetlands also.
But this isn't part of the open space.
This is not part of the open space. Things to know. Yeah, that's more easily to see the lots. This tells you the open space. This is a town line. This property, apparently.
There was a buffer on the town.
Is there a requirement for that?
I'm sorry,
A buffer on the town line?
I don't know of one, but I do not have any expertise on that.
Doesn't look any of so many subdivisions.
So this parcel here is owned by the Woodbridge Land Trust. So this is a nice abutting and access to land trust property. You know, it's Sonia. It's very odd. I was surprised when I first saw that.
And how many acres is that?
Does it say there? I do not know what it says.
It's
It's
the
what-
old, Kozak.
So Kozak still owns this.
I'm going to ask you if you didn't watch it. We want to come up here if maybe easier. I think I can do it upside down. Over here, this is kind of Woodbridge property, this corner, or this corner, this slice of land.
That's the lease part.
That's the lease property. Right.
But they gave it for the school and,
And does this have access to
yes,
the town, to
Yep.
Rimmon?
Yeah,
yes.
there is
Somewhere over here.
there is an outlet. So, thank you. So, it's a nice offering. I think what could be improved is, and strangely enough, this property has been in the works since 2018. The discussion was had with the Conservation Commission at that point in time. I don't think there were no current members who were members at that time. At that time, there was a talk of a 10-foot path that would connect the Woodbridge-owned property to the land trust property. So that would have meant across the whole back. And it would be nice, because these are privately owned, it would be nice to have a connection between this property and this property.
So,
And the only thing that really stops it is this lot here.
Well, yes, but,
just 10
yeah,
acres.
so, yeah. Yes, so, but with a grant of additional open space, of 10 to 20 to 30 feet, then
Is this
Yes.
And this is access, how's this access?
These
So
look-
it's
these-
way,
This looks like a
Or it
driveway.
could come this way here too.
This looks like a driveway here.
yeah, but this
You
is
can,
driveway.
you can,
Maybe
Where
not.
the wetlands cross.
you can see here,
Oh,
lot 3 is down there.
no, I see, Yeah.
That's the,
That
should
would
be
be
the
the driveway.
driveway.
but I'm just wondering here,
Lot 2,
right narrow,
I don't know what this is.
that it makes a
What's
setback.
this? Oh, that's already.
Those are two
driveway.
houses, yeah.
There's houses.
Yeah, it's like we can here.
Mhm.
And then this
Sure.
one can go either.
Well, I don't think they do wetlands. But, so the idea would be to maybe ask for a little more land or so that this can all.
So, you know,
Easement.
now, they're,
Connection.
you know, I've never been on the land, but I've looked at it in the front, it's beautiful up here, it's all wooded. But here, it's wetland, so that is gonna be perhaps a challenge, we need bridges, you know, or sidewalks to go across.
It's just wetland
But that's-
soil and no
but-
wet.
Yes, right,
No.
Uh-huh.
but it's been done before, we have all those, you know, pontoons at the Elsa Swamp, and
So, we've already gotten the open space that we might request, so there's no requesting any other open space, is that sort of
Well,
what you're saying?
Unless
No.
we request.
Yeah.
no, you can always request. And I gave Mr. Vinchell a call. And asked if they consider that.
Okay. Well, are we all in agreement?
Well,
And
he
had it
said-
been, had he considered it, or had it been?
He considered in the past,
In the
so
past?
I sent him a note, said, hey, look.
Are you
know,
still, would you
Yeah.
continue to consider?
Yeah.
I mean, so you had no idea what his answer was in the past? If
Well,
ever gave one.
he proposed it, it was proposed.
He proposed
Yeah.
that.
Yes,
Great, something easy.
Oh,
yes,
Then
that's
why
what,
did
that's what
he-
I'm saying, this
why didn't he do
is,
it
should be a,
in the first place when he
did this, you know,
created this design?
because the plan probably changed 10 times since his, in 2018.
Yeah,
No, I
for the developers.
think things, you know, back and forth with the owner and, you know, and,
Oh, I thought you were talking about that.
no,
Well, the
if I,
developer.
well, I said, I used the wrong term, correct myself, with the civil engineer surveyor person, and in many, you know, the way I believe this works is owner wants to develop land, but they don't know all the rules and regulations. They go to someone who's worked in the town before, and this company has, you know, and recently we records from 67, two of the same people. So they know the town, they know the regulations, and they figure out how to, the owner says, I want this and this, okay, and they figure out how to make it work on a piece of property. And
Well, you know, so, I'm just noticing here, this is Birmingham Utilities, so that also is a nice
yes, absolutely.
connection.
I didn't point that out. I didn't even realize it was on the map, actually, I knew it was over here.
So that's good, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
it-
a lot of that side of the road.
If,
Yeah.
if,
So, I mean, how much do they really want this wetland too, because it's completely restricted? They might just be willing to give us a little more wetland for
Well,
this.
yeah, the only,
And setbacks.
I think-
Setbacks, so.
they put the square here, this called buildable square. Every development lot has to be able to contain one of these.
So it
Now,
needs enough
where it
setback.
ends up, you know, it depends on the
It could be
person.
here.
It could be here, but in back here, they probably want some level of privacy. But I'm not sure I would want to build a house there, I would probably want to build there, but,
I guess if they're here, they're.
Well, it's there because this is all private, and this,
Yeah, right,
this
right.
design.
right.
What is this?
Wetlands.
Oh, that's wetlands too?
Wetland soil.
So, just thought I'd give you an update on.
Let us know when you're there.
Yeah, well, this will go to wetlands, and then eventually go to TBZ, and that's who really makes the decision on the open space.
So do we send a note over to them, saying this is our request?
If we need to, if there's anything to say.
Well,
I mean,
we can
I
say
would
that
guess,
we'd like to formally ask for that.
yeah, yeah, well, the hope would be that they would come back, and say.
They, the owner.
Well,
developer.
well,
The engineer.
the engineer
Oh,
will talk to the owner.
got it.
And I think in this case, the owner, I think it's a private piece of property, so I think it's not like there's a developer. And then, you know, make sure it's okay, that they review the plan, and if it's okay, they'll come back, they'll add it, they'll change this. And then, I think perhaps we do want to write a supportive note to TPC to say,
Yeah.
we reviewed the plan of open space, we find it, to me, my word would be generous, there's a lot of percentage, and it seems to support.
Now, would this be town land or land trust land? Or could we make a recommendation that it's correct, that it would be more protected products as land trust land of this town?
Well, that's a conservation.
Well, I think the regs are written to deed it to the town.
Okay. As
We
open
can-
space,
As open space,
make
yes.
it perpetuity.
Well,
No, that doesn't, that doesn't do it.
I'm not good, you know, I don't want to jump that far. If you look at the regs, I think it's just a deed for open
It
space.
doesn't do it.
So
Maybe we should
I
ask
think
for it.
when so the person who's doing the development is supposed to present a deed to the town, the TPZ, I guess, for the open space. So it would be, at the point the deed is written, that you could put in, you know, conservation easements type language.
Okay, can we make sure we do that?
Yeah, well,
That request.
we can't, but we,
Can we make sure we make that request, I guess?
You know,
yeah, we can, I guess,
in
Are we
the
all set
past,
yeah, I think we're set.
I have one more question though. What's the elevation of these? There's no topo map. Is this steep? It looks like there's less steep slopes.
This is one drawing out of many that are in the package, and I think
Right.
there's another map that
We should
shows
look at
the elevations.
I'm curious about the elevation.
Yeah, I didn't ask that from Chris. I thought the one map would be enough, at least to be up there, but yeah, we can, I'm sure she will give us that. I think that, let's go back to the seats. You might want to switch that back. Sharon, I think you raised an interesting question, though, and I'm not sure the right process to follow to try to make that happen. So I think we do need to think about that, and
Can we put that in the
If
note
I
so that
may-
we remember to do it?
if
yeah,
I may
Conservation
I'm
easement.
write a note to myself, but
Conservation easement
interject
and
here.
open, sorry.
Yeah, this has happened in the past here with the town. The Massaro property for one, and it was the owner, or at least the lawyers of the owner, who suggested and had, it was given to the town, but the land trust got the conservation easement so that the land trust could keep it.
Yeah, so we can find out about
Keep
that,
it
maybe whether
without-
we should have the land
The
trust.
same
control,
thing
but-
happened, but in a different way with the Hitchcock property on Center Road. And
Center and Peace.
and it was the trust and the Historical Society, but the town received the deed, but is under the aegis of these others.
That actually might
organizations.
be something we spend some time learning about, like someone could talk to us about conservation easements, who holds them, how the, and that, you know.
Well, conservation easements can be held by anybody, but that's how
Right, but how
how
to.
they have the checks and balances
Yeah.
around.
Okay, so I guess in my interest is that if we get this open space, that it be guaranteed that it stays open space, so we should do
That it's
whatever that
protected.
takes, and I don't quite know what that takes, whether it's a land
Right.
trust or just a specific easement or.
Right, the idea that we would like to see whatever mechanism is needed to have it protected.
Okay, yeah.
I will have the same sort of question, sort of in general, not related to this property myself, and I will do a little research into that, and welcome others to do it as well. What are the mechanisms? The easements come with responsibilities, they're not just free. They need to be enforced, they need to be monitored before they're enforced, I guess. I should-
Mhm.
so that we have it maintained, so that there is
So I guess the
some
question.
work that you take on, and certainly it's not, the land trust, if it went that way, would have to be involved in the process as well. Okay, running a little bit behind here. The next item is 124 Seymour Road, update. Valerie sent a summary, I think that was chock full of information. There is, from the last you knew about this, there has not been a tremendous amount of change. Trust for Public Land is still talking to the principals. They've talked to the owner of the property. They're about to talk to the owner's daughter and to the land trust. Those are two calls that I'm told will happen on Monday. The other update is I've made the first selectman and finance manager aware of the situation, because it is a valuable piece of the town of Greenway Trail. And so I gave them a brief on what was going on and asked them to consider, which they are going to, the simple letter to the Trust for the Public Land that they are interested in getting the help from the Trust for the Public Land to figure out what can be done to preserve the property. And so I sent the model language over yesterday, it was. I'm hopeful that they seem, they seemed okay with it because there was no commitment in the letter. Not going to purchase it. There was just a expression of interest in getting some help. Again, if we had enough money in the bank, it would be so one of my questions that I was going to ask Tony Genovese during our session that will come up again next month is that money is for open space purposes. It gets approved by the Board of Selectmen to spend. That was pretty clear from the conversation with the first selectman and the finance manager. Since that money is not there, spending money for that property would involve a lengthy process whose steps I cannot tell you exactly, but I believe I remember them told me that it involved, I think they said involved a town meeting.
Town what?
Meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So it would be a lengthy process, so that's not a
That's if we
Not
were
free.
seeking funding from like the general fund.
from general fund, special authorization, yeah.
Not the Conservation
Okay.
Commission funds, we're not talking about those.
So the best, what's working against us here is time, of course. The best solution would be to find someone who is willing to come in and give us that time by acquiring the property. So,
I may have found the person.
Wow.
And I was gonna ask for all of you to look for people, so this is would be wonderful news.
I can't go any further than
Yeah,
that.
no,
But
we
is
should.
somebody who
Yeah.
is, I think, totally capable of purchasing the whole thing and was going to look at it last I talked to them.
Wonderful.
And is interested in doing it and preserving it. I mean,
Okay.
Wow.
totally for preserving it, but, well, not totally,
Yeah.
but totally interested in.
Okay. Wonderful. That's
But don't count on it, just
No.
it is a possibility.
okay. Well, if there's something that we can do to help, just in terms of information, since we've had a lot of contact with the family and so forth, please let us know.
They are more concerned about the forced sale date than anything, but I think they have enough experience with
Okay.
purchases and property things that they can go to the right sources to find out how they can figure
Yeah.
that one out.
Well, I mean, it may be, again, the Trust for Public Land may be able to be a source of information for them. And I can hook them up, that they would be what we would call an angel. Well, the Trust for Public Land calls it by stealing their term. Somebody that would come in and do this and then hold it for a period of time until other arrangements get put in place. Okay.
And they
Any
want
other-
it for themselves.
Yeah, well,
That's good too.
that's, I mean,
It's not,
it's available for sale, so.
yeah.
Any last comments on that?
Good job.
I didn't do anything except speak about it.
Well, speaking about it, Kate, I'm gonna open this up. David needs to know. You just don't look back because went to sleep. We're gonna talk about the Greenway walks just a little bit. I hope. See it coming. There we go. You may have a copy with you or that before the meeting.
Right.
I don't think that knowing that looking at the details is so important here. Maybe it will be. But I think the walks have been a great success. I mean, I think they've been fun and we've learned a good deal. The hope is that we will continue to do those. I'm a little disappointed Paul's not here only because he made the comment that drove me to this chart. He mentioned that as we were doing the second walk, he liked the length of it a lot better than the first walk. He thought the first walk was too short. Yeah, he may have implied that, but I took his point. And so I went back and looked at all the sections, and I said, really should some of these sections be combined? And so there's two aspects of that. One is, can we combine them when we take the walk for this group? And then secondly, the sections and my numbers on the numbers I put on the sections are arbitrary. They didn't exist before. It was for reference. So there's nothing magic about having 12 sections, whatever we have. I guess it's 12. And I think there's some goodness to thinking through how the sections are put together so that you have good and decent parking on either end, if you can. And some things go together logically. So, I'm not gonna, excuse me, I'm not gonna, spend a lot of time now on this topic. We'll get to our work session to, review this, and we can talk more about combining the sections, but for the walks, you know, you can see what we did the last time, which is in the blue. So that's 1.66. And there's some shorter ones and there's some little longer ones. Some of the longer ones, for instance, the first one, if you go up to the top of West Rock Ridge, you gotta come back down, so it's really 2.6. So that sort of deserves to stand by itself.
Sure.
And so,
I find it funny that Paul thought the second was so much better. It was less than half a mile longer.
I feel like that number's wrong.
Well, I mean, you're welcome to,
Which is the
Take my wheel
One-
out next time.
Yeah.
1.6.
I took the maps and I added up all the numbers. If they were
I
missing some
believe
number, or if I missed some, yeah, shame on me, but,
Believe it. Just,
you know, but
felt so much
it felt longer.
than
It's because maybe we talked more, I don't know.
We had to backtrack too once, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, back to the teepee.
Right.
That's right, we went back to the TV. So, you know, this would be just a suggestion as whoever's organizing the next walk, and there's no order to organizing the walk, so whoever wants to jump in and do that. Suggestion, so, any comment on that at this time?
You know, if we want to do the Darling House to West Rock Ridge, early September, if folks are around. Although I know some of us are traveling.
It depends what weekend you're thinking.
Sure.
Yeah.
Should we coordinate schedules over email? Is that how you did it?
Well,
before?
I think what we've done, correct me if I'm wrong, is we've just had the person who has that section just put the stake in the ground and say,
We're gonna do it then.
this is when we're gonna walk this, and not, you know, not everybody's gonna be available. I mean, it shouldn't be an exercise in, but, I mean, a doodle, or what's the name of the, sampling for who's available?
When to meet?
When to meet, thank you. I come up with doodle.
Doodle poll's another one.
Doodle
Very
poll, okay.
similar.
Well, that's way back. I mean, certainly that's more inclusive, I guess, for people to be able to
Okay.
say when they're going. And we've
Okay.
been doing them on Saturday mornings. I guess my other comment was gonna be, not that the early morning start is good in the summer, and after you're up, you're glad about it. But as it cools, we may wanna push that a little bit too, you know, just because it will be, we'll get into October, November to be cooler, but, so. Okay?
Diana, I'd be interested in that walk. That's one of the places I've never walked.
Oh.
Up and down the ridge?
No, up and down the ridge, but the Darling House, is that the
To
one?
Dillon Road, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Darling
no,
to
I don't
Dillon?
think I've
To
done
Dillon
that.
is,
Well, I was suggesting Darling to West Rock Ridge.
that's the one
I've
that's,
done that.
that's the one that goes straight
Yeah,
up and down.
it is, it does get steep.
Yeah, you'll earn your breakfast going up.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just in consideration of everybody's vacation schedules
Yeah.
coming up, maybe it'll be easier to do when to meet poll. So I'll send one of those around.
Yeah, and some are flatter there, of course. The things through the center of town tend to be flatter. Okay.
So do we feel like doing Darling House to Amity Road, connecting those two? That's, 30.4, is that too far?
I don't think it is.
Well, we did actually do, well,
We do Dillon to Amity?
Dillon to Amity.
I don't think
we
that would
haven't
be-
done Dillon to Amity.
Oh, that's
I
right,
don't think
that's all
that-
the way in
Yeah.
through the,
The
Lake
reason
Chamberlain.
I considered, combining those two, the Darling House to Dillon and Dillon to Amity Road. And backed off a little bit because the Dillon to Amity Road requires a water company permit.
Oh,
Now, I have a water company permit, so we can do that walk, I think under that auspices, but, for general combination, for our, I hesitated to combine those, because people might wanna just, knowing they can't walk that without a permit. Now, there is an alternative to having, that permit, where you walk on some streets. So there is an alternative. So we as a commission, it may be good to do,
it sort of defeats the
could
purpose.
do
though.
that all, well, it doesn't. I mean, the water company, it's not all on streets, it's just partly on streets, I would say it that way. And maybe that's what we want to do for the walk, is walk it one way, the water company way, and one way the other way. You get a sense of, what that means. There are a
Okay.
couple places in town like that. Okay. All right, we're on to member comments or items for the next meeting. We'll have Tony coming, of course.
That's good.
He sent his apologies and regrets, but did say he should be able to make September. Any other comments, things for the agenda next time?
Not that I think of it this moment.
I have one other item that's as a comment. The Board of Selectmen formed a strategic plan subcommittee, and that is Sheila McCrevin, David Vogel, and Tony Genovese is the subcommittee. And they have put together a strategic plan for fiscal year 23 draft. And they're going through a process to build that up. My understanding is that, this is mostly, or has a prime purpose of driving future budgets. That you know what you're trying to accomplish, then you should be spending most of your money on that. Or when people come and want to do things, we should support something in the plan. And so I do think, Kate,
Yeah, we're done at
I'm
8.
sorry.
Thanks.
So that's.
That's using like the new software that they have that tracks the budget.
I do not know that there's a relationship, or they build the plan into that. I can see that being done, but I don't know anything about the capability of the software.
I saw the software presented this past week for another town, and so they referenced Woodbridge in there. But that's one of the benefits of the software is
You
you
can
say,
put in objectives.
yes,
Yeah.
our objective is to build a school in this year, and it strategically helps you plan pre and post financial.
So this plan will, as it gets laid out, it's laid out with goals at the top level, and then strategies, and then tactics. I'm going to send it to everybody if I can find the electronic copy. I'll send the latest of what I have, and I believe it keeps changing, so you may not have the very latest. Those strategies and tactics involve, of necessity, different boards and commissions to be part and parcel in executing some of those. So I think it's probably important for us to understand what's going in here and think about how it might relate to what we do. I think there's an expectation that the Board of Selectmen will want to know how what we're doing relates to this. And when we talked about the liaisons not participating in each and every meeting of each and every board, but rather the boards or the chair, I'm not sure how it was expressed, coming back before the Board of Selectmen, and I got a little more information on that today. And I think the hope is that will be the conduit to ask how the projects the board commission is working on or doing, and for the Board of Selectmen to keep tabs on that, and how you know, and they should be related to these. So the Board of Selectmen want to see these accomplished, and we'll expect the boards and commissions that are working on each piece to be working towards those and doing that as a monitoring mechanism, if you will. So I'll send this to everybody, and you know, I guess I will just encourage you to read it, and if you have comments, I mean, if it's there's no formal plan right now to get input from the boards and commissions as they go through this process. I think it will probably, you know, once they formulate it, then I think it'll start to be dispersed and spread and talked about and introduced and so forth. So I think that process is going to stay within the committee, and I think they are trying to figure out how to get public comment, but you know, that's not identified yet. Okay, so that's what it is. I think it's a good thing. I mean, talking as I might think it's not a good. The way I'm saying it's not, I think it's that you think. I think it's not a good thing. I think it's a wonderful thing that the town does this. I mean, it's the right thing to have some, not just react, to have a plan of what you're trying to do. So, good stuff. All right. Anything else? Any other comments?
I have, I guess it's more of a request. On our agendas each month, can there be a place for just updates on each subject we have been talking about? So we make sure, and there may be no updates, but you know, so that we don't lose in the cracks some of these things that we have discussed and all of a sudden we've forgotten about them and so forth. So
Well, yes.
not necessarily specific numbered items on the agenda, but simply updates on,
I guess I could take this member comments and just put those types of items underneath as a running list, sub-bullets, so they're not, you know, you wouldn't.
And comments, because we might have some new ideas too.
Oh, and comment,
Yeah.
right, absolutely. But I would ask you, you know, be glad to do that, to enumerate those items that somebody might want to comment on, or a quick update on, you know, we're not going to have a discussion dedicated a lot of time, but then just help me as to what those items should be. And right now,
Well, wouldn't it be Seymour Road,
Sure.
tree ordinance?
I mean,
yeah, well, those are
you
here.
simply
I'm
take,
thinking, I thought Barbara was addressing things that we don't have on the main agenda.
well,
But some of these may not be
Like-
on the main
like
agenda in 3 months.
Seymour,
but they still
Rimmon
may-
Road may not be on the agenda next month, but just, I feel, for instance, Merritt Avenue,
Yeah,
it would be nice just to have an update, if there is an update, and there may not be an update. You'd be generally the person that would have the update, so it's all these different projects that we either are involved in or hear about or whatever.
okay,
Strategic plan, you know, there might be an update.
yeah. Yeah, well, that one I may put on the agenda, just to give everybody a
Well,
chance
that's
to
fine,
talk
but
about
I'm
it,
saying that-
and, you know, if there's anything missing, but Merritt Avenue is a good example, because that one is there, it's gonna come back, but it's just floating, and, you know, you may wanna just know that it's still there, and that's fair.
Or where it is in the
That-
process.
That's,
or
I'm
something.
trying to think of things that should be on there, and that's a good example. There are others
Or
down
the trail thing that Kate was doing too, might be an update, or, you
Yeah.
know, or not doing.
Well,
Yeah, sometimes you see like,
Capuac.
on agendas, it's like new business versus old business, so anything that's,
hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
like, discussed it
reviewable.
the first time it's new business,
Yeah.
it's gotta be
The-
reoccurring.
Yeah, I think,
That's the format I've seen before.
yes, I mean, well, old
Is it-
business needs, as I understand, needs to be qualified. Old business is not a recommended from FOI point of view, because it doesn't tell people what's really gonna be discussed.
Well, but you
And-
can
and so-
do bullets
So
underneath
you
what
put
you're
bullets-
saying.
put
Bullets
bullets.
under.
Yeah, and that's why I say, I'm gonna just put, instead of old business, I was gonna just say comment, I can just put updates and just put the list, you know, instead of member comments.
And then also when you send a draft around, everybody.
Yeah, can add to it.
There we go.
I'm gonna put member update comments. So we'll keep both.
Okay, good
and
idea.
then- And then, have a list. I'll have Merritt Avenue, and when I send it around next month, we can add on if there are things that we need a quick update on. You know, that's valid. Okay. All right, we set to move on?
Would you like it?
Hmm?
I was gonna make a motion. To adjourn, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
I tried.
You have the work session. You don't wanna do work? Is that what I hear?
Not for
No.
long.
Okay. We were going to move on and talk about the Greenway Plan. Kate, I'm gonna use this extensively.
So what's our timing for this?
How much time are we
Yeah.
gonna take? What did I put on the agenda?
You didn't.
I didn't, because it's always hard to tell. I mean, we'll go to a reasonable time, 9:15. What is it?
Nine?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get out by 9.
Yeah, let's try.
Great.
So, I think I mentioned, it's not showing, is it? Hopefully. It will come up.
Did you turn the projector back on?
Yeah, it didn't go off.
Looks like going on.
It shows green. So-
Turned off the light.
Oh, yeah, that's right, thank you. We closed that to help Kate. Okay, there we go. All right, so, in the email I sent out, I talked about focusing on the expansions. So I would like to just take comments. And I guess we'll go through just section by section. And the first page is, just the overview of the expansions. And I'm going, I think I saw a couple of your little stickies in here, so I assume you have some comments. Let's see. And I don't expect you to be reading this one necessarily, just as a place, so we're in the same place, but any comments on this first introductory page? And this really gives a list of the expansion areas. And a little high-level snapshot of where they are in town. I will mention that number 4, the northwest corner walk, that is going through that 356 Rune property.
The one we just did.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there are, a number of parcels there that can be connected, and the details, of course, are down in that page. So it's a nice timing. It was nice timing. It was kind of obvious that there was something there, but this piece of property is going to be very helpful for that. Okay, so I didn't hear any comments. I'm going quick because people would like to get out of here. So the first one is completing the Greenway circuit down into the business district, so down Park Lane. Again, I don't want to reread this. Hopefully you've looked at it. Any comments or questions?
Tim, isn't there already a connection from the, I'll call them the Bladens Brook Swamp to Bethany Farms?
Yes. You want to hold that till we get there
Okay.
on here? And
We're on the next page.
okay. So on this first section,
There you go.
okay, no other comments? Down the Fountain Street, the path, the Greenway already goes down the Fountain Street, but this is just to reconfigure it into the pieces. And then Amity Road to Darling House, which this one I'd like to focus on a little bit. This is the one that's most challenging, or one of the more challenging ones here. Because of the business that sits abutting Canolds Pond, and it makes it impossible at this point in time to walk around on that side of Canolds Pond, and the other side is Litchfield Turnpike. There is a big project coming up having to do with Canolds Pond, which is to help the flooding problem in that area of town. The Army Corps of Engineers studying dredging that.
Okay.
That could change the landscape, and I think that's noted in the text there. But even as it is, in the meantime, there may, it's a very dense area in terms of people, and so you could think that you might be able to provide that group of people with access at least to part of the pond at this time in the town and state-owned land, and then eventually hopefully expand that to go around the pond. That pond apparently used to support some businesses. People used to
Ice.
well, yeah, pulling ice, but didn't somebody run just a tour boat or something, or
Well, that I've never
paddle
heard of.
boats, or
That I've never heard of.
but certainly used for ice skating, and so forth. Okay. So. The second one is to try to connect people through this center of town, to the center of town. And when I send you the strategic plan, you'll see some talk of that in here. So it is in concert with that. Part of it also says the Country Club of Woodbridge would be a good place. It's a large piece of open space right now, and it would be a good good place to have a connection to and from. One of the major challenges of this proposed expansion is getting through the JCC property. And Betsy Yagla, before she left, had a conversation with a person at the JCC sometime in the past, and so she's about this type of activity, and she has hooked me up with them. And so at an appropriate time, you know, we think this is, you know, an appropriate expansion, you know, we'll go have that conversation. And then coming out of the JCC through the back of the East Side Burying Ground, of course, permissions needed across the Ledgy property, and I think there's one more property that needs an easement. You can get back to the road that'll take you to Newton Road and then into the center of town. It'll be a nice connection between some of the more public places. Here you go, Barb. Bethany Farms. So if I remember your question, it was isn't there already a trail there?
It
From
connects to Bethany
Bladen's
Farms.
Brook up to Bethany Farms.
Yes. There is. It is, so this is more about, well, two things. That part of the trail that goes, how do I want to start this? Let me try again. A lot of a lot of our Greenway Trail is part of the old Naugatuck Trail. And basically, the Naugatuck Trail, where the hike took place, that is part of the Naugatuck Trail. And it goes through the center of town and eventually to Fountain Street. So that's the part that's part of the Naugatuck Trail. From where we were standing in that parking lot, and we turn away from the house across the street and we look the other way. If you go to the right, it's Russell Swamp. If you go to the left, that's the Naugatuck Trail. And that goes up along a brook, very nice walk. I didn't do it all the way. And you can see the brook there if you look at the blue line. And then I don't know how far it goes in Bethany. I didn't explore that per se. But that's part of the Naugatuck Trail, and that part has not been part of the Greenway. So the trail is there, and this is just a saying to recognize that this piece of the Naugatuck Trail is within town, and this connects to Bethany and their green on open spaces, and that we're going to recognize that and just make it part of our Greenway system. That was the attempt. So you're absolutely right and correct, and that's the reason to add it in. It was actually a rather late addition. This section of trail, there's a trail group in town that works to maintain the trail, or coordinate between the Land Trust and the Park Association and the town about the trails, and that group didn't have any insight that this was here. It wasn't on the list, in other words. And
Is it protected land?
yes, yes.
Whose
In
land is it?
In Bethany, it goes to it's Bethany Farms, because even in the Woodbridge part of it, right away you get to a big sign that says, you know, this bridge was done by the Bethany Boy Scouts.
Okay, so it's
and-
under the
and-
jurisdiction of Bethany.
And it's the Bethany Land Trust that takes care of those trails. So, I think that trail group said, great, we'll let them do it, but there's at least some recognition that, and part of, you've seen in the document is, we've highlighted where we connect to other towns. And so, you know, this was just trying to get the recognition for this in here and expand it, especially since it's the Naugatuck Trail. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Let's see.
By the way, Tim, you had mentioned a question in here about who is Harding?
Who is?
Harding, part of the Russell Swamp. It was named for a memorial to Harding.
Okay.
And you said, who is this person? And I can't tell you the answer right now, but I have read who it is, and it is some relative of the Whitlock Russell
Okay.
people who died, and that area he loved, so that's what they wanted to name it.
Okay.
And I have to get an exact.
Those are facts we'd, you know, like to get in when we can. The other question, I asked this question and maybe I've already asked this question. We call, we talk about the Eldersley property, except it was donated by
The Wallaces.
Wallace. So why do we call it Eldersley property? Does anybody know?
I think it's written somewhere,
If you
why
find
it's
it-
called Eldersley.
Yeah, if you find that, let
Yep.
me know.
I have read that too, but I can't remember
Okay.
why.
I didn't know that. Oh, well, here's that northwest connector, we sort of talked about that. And, at 2.7 miles, it was measured on Google Maps. And a little bit of work there to get some permissions, but a lot of places with conservation easements, so. All right, and then jumping the other side of town, the next one is CCW to Racebrook. Paul, I know, had some thoughts about this, so, well, I mean, we're not gonna be trying to adopt this document yet, so we'll have more time to talk about it, but, this is unfortunately just mostly a road walk. And you can't think of any way else to connect those pieces of property. But I know Paul was interested in doing that. So at a future time, I'd be interested in get his comments. They're crossing the Wilbur Cross Parkway is the challenge, of course. And you know, the racetrack track is not there in green for some reason, but it's a big piece of property, and the Woodbridge Country Club is up there too. So, you know, just to point out, I want to make sure I'm right. Excuse me a second. This is the Yale Golf Course. Up here is the Yale Nature Preserve.
Mm-hmm.
Is very close to the terminus of the Fountain Street terminus. These last two are aspirational, I guess I would say. They're power line trails. The power companies will let you develop recreational usage for their property. They have a process. So where the power lines go, there's a possibility to increase our ability to get from one place to another, pedestrians to get one place to another. It's just not clear beyond what we laid out to get to this, center of town JCC property where the power lines go through, where else we would want to connect. It's just not clear to me at this point. And then the southwest section of town, there are a lot of private properties that are undeveloped, but there is a lot of wetlands. Tough to see how you can really get things connected, but would be wonderful if you could. I mean, from the Racebrook tract sort of over to the little private golf course that's there, and then back along some of the Waccawag River properties and up. Real challenging though. I don't quite see it. So these have been in past open space plans, and so I've retained them. We don't have to, but I've left them in. And the order of these, sort of 1 to 7, is sort of roughly most important realistic to least important realistic. I mean, you could argue about sort of the order, but that's generally how I ordered it.
Okay.
So if we can go back up to the listing, find it there.
Oh, sorry. We think we'd work on the first top ones before we worked on the bottom ones, or those who are going to work to implement these. Okay. So not much feedback, not much comments. Couple of corrections.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, that
On
and
your very last page, it's not, I'm not sure where you got the term beehive kiln. It's a cement kiln.
so, Barbara, I'm sorry, I was struggling to find my
Page 36.
place here. Yep. You're talking about which item in the historical questions?
Mm-hmm. There are 3 cement kilns.
I'm sorry, cement?
Cement kilns.
Cement kilns.
It was a project that was a scam that was started in Woodbridge in the 1800s. And, it's a wonderful story. Anybody wants to, I can
Sometime.
read the story. Where we actually have certificates and shareholders and so forth and so on. And the quarries that you're talking about they quarried the materials that they thought they were going to be able to make this wonderful cement, like Portland cement, but it was all a scam.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
well, it might
great.
be an interesting.
And one of the kilns, the one in the best shape, is very, very close to the Blue Trail going along there. Very close. You have to walk downhill a little bit to get to it.
Yeah, no, those are the types of things I eventually.
And the quarries are right there too, in the same place.
I'd like to get GPS marked, and then we can put them on the map, and then maybe we can have someone write up that story and link to it. And, you know,
Same thing with the spring.
yeah, same with the springs and all the mills and.
The other 2
art.
kilns, well, it's
tree.
really only 2 kilns, I should say. The other kiln is on the corner of Dillon Road and Litchfield Turnpike, and it is literally falling down. It is a national landmark. No, it's on the National Register. It's not a landmark.
On the corner of Dillon and Litchfield?
Mhm.
Oh,
Behind,
yeah, yeah,
behind,
yeah, yeah.
behind the fence?
Behind
It has a
the
fence
chain
in it
link
now,
fence. That is a kiln, and it was in perfect shape until the DOT decided they were going to reshape the bottom of Dillon Road, and they just destroyed all the foundations of it, so it
Really?
started crumbling.
Is that, who owns that?
Water company.
Owns the kiln?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not,
And Sarah owns the other one. I think Sarah owns it. I'm not sure whether Sarah or Woodbridge owns the other one. Sarah Shepherd.
huh.
I'm not sure who owns that other one.
All right. So next time, probably take comments on just the general sections, and I guess I would ask, I would put it in writing, just, go through your sections again and see what the open questions are. Let's see if we can, how many of those we can.
I have a
Clean
request
those
that
up
we do
before
this
we
earlier in the
adopt.
meeting than at the very end. Like
say-
devote a half hour to it earlier in the meeting than at the very end.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I think we're probably at a juncture we could do that. There was a lot to do, and I wanted to leave it out open-ended, but I think at this point, I think that's a practical suggestion. Okay. Next time we'll be busy. We'll have Tony, and then this, and then the update. Okay. Good. Anything else?
Move.
Yes.
What?
Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Oh, sorry, now it's my time, okay, great. I'd like to make a motion, I make a motion to adjourn at 9:15. Second.
All in favor?
You're like, what are you? I know, I'm sorry, I'm sleeping now.
All in favor? Do we
Aye.
We don't have
Do
to.
we even have to vote that
We
much?
don't have to vote.
Okay, thank you all.